mention toxic fathers, it is easy for people to talk about it. But when the term toxic is applied to mothers, there is fear and outcry from many. Mostly because it would force them to face their relationship with their own mothers. What happens when a woman doesn't or can't love her children? We aim to reveal the multi-generational thread that often runs through unspoken, where many unloving mothers were the daughters of unloving and hypercritical women. And not surprisingly, where behaviors, even abusive and toxic ones, get normalized. It is time to begin talking, acknowledging, and accepting. It is time to start the healing journey.
When you listen to people talk about their mothers, often it is how amazing they are, how they've been there for them, how they pray for them, how they do all these things for them, and who they have been in their lives. I would say toxic mothering is a total opposite of that. There are varying degrees of it. It can vary from something as simple as abandonment to the more serious things like neglect, abuse, physical, emotional, mental. There's varying degrees of it. So that's what I would say. So my name is Saiton Righa. I am a digital marketer. I am also the owner of Healing Growth, which is an online bookshop that focuses on resources around trauma. And I am also somebody who's working through healing very deep childhood trauma and developmental trauma that I faced as a child. My family is very complex. I am my mother's only child, and I am the fifth child of my father's. They were not married, and my father is actually from another country. For most children, mother is home. That's your sense of safety. That's your sense of belonging. That's the only person that you know a lot of times if there's no other parent. And so for me, my mother was my home, for lack of a better description. I lived with her up until I was 9. And then she left to go to the US and came 2 days before my wedding when I was 29. I will say I feel like I believe she does not understand the decisions that she made and how they affected me. I feel like it's extremely painful for her to reconcile these realities of what I went through when she was not there. And I feel like there's a lot of denial. I believe that she does love me. However, I also believe that she abandoned. I don't believe, but I feel like I was abandoned. As I grow older, I do understand the decision and what led her to some of the decisions that she made. But unfortunately, the thing about parenting is your child did not ask to be here. You as a parent chose to have them. And that then puts you at a position where you have to do a lot more in ensuring that your child is safe, that your child is loved, that your child is nourished, that your child is cared for in the ways that children need to be cared. I also believe my mom is unable to do that. I cannot speak as to the reasons why, because that is her journey and her path to take. My responsibility is for me to heal the wounds and the things that came up as a result of what happened, whether it was knowing or unknowing. There was still damage that happened. There was still trauma that happened. My responsibility is to heal that so that I am a better person and a better mother for my children. So the question is, what does toxic motherhood actually look like? Wow, there's many levels to it. One would be, a simple one is denying your child's reality. Your child is being beaten by some bully or whatever, and you completely refuse to believe that. That in itself is because what you're telling your child is that they're a liar, that what they're experiencing is not true, and that you won't help them because you don't believe them. That creates incredible damage for the child. And that's just a simple example. Many people, sometimes I talk to people and they have many stories of not being believed by the person who should have believed them. And it starts with small things as, sibling rivalry, all the way to molestation, which is, I think, one of the worst things, where unfortunately their mothers do not believe them and then start to support the abuser and stuff like that. So that's one angle of it. I would say abandonment and neglect. There's being left for days without food, without a nanny, without anyone, and the parent is capable of actually being there and staying there. Because I think one of the things that we have done as a society is we have made mothers and motherhood a god. And by doing that, you dehumanize a mother, and you're unable to then look at this person as a human being with faults and choices, and you're unable to then separate that there's some people who do this very well, and there's some people who don't. There's some people who want to and do it well, and others who want to and don't do it well, and the others who never wanted to be. I mean, when you look at, even the kids on the streets have mothers. We separate how we look at mothers because we really idolize them, and it's an injustice to all mothers everywhere. Because then a mother who's struggling can't talk about her struggle. A mother who doesn't want to be a mother cannot talk about that. And yet, the truth is, motherhood is a very difficult thing. We need to humanize it so then we're able to talk about the struggles, and we're able to heal, and we're able to do what we need to do. In terms of the toxic motherhood, again, like I said, there's a variety of things. There's people who have been abused and beaten and even bitten, and their mothers have been the ones to inflict pain on their child. That is it. And it's not just pain physically, pain emotionally, pain psychologically, manipulation. Like if your relationship with your mother is all about manipulation, that in itself is toxicity. If it's all only about there's clear favoritism, and one of your siblings is the golden child, and everything is blamed on you, you're completely the black sheep, that in itself is toxic motherhood. My wish is that people would be able to accept their mothers as humans, because then you're able to see the variety, because they're good people and bad. I wouldn't say necessarily good people, but they're people who choose to do this journey in ways that inflict everlasting pain on their children, and as a result, even the grandchildren. Because if you don't heal, you end up doing the same thing to your child, because your experience of motherhood is implicit. It's even before we find the words for it. You learn to mother from your mother, one. And sometimes you learn things even before you have the words for them, because you experience them. If you're trying to teach a toddler how to do something, you do it and they copy, right? Even sometimes, even if they don't have the words. That's how we learn our mothering, right? And so if you do not sit down and have a look at how you were mothered, you will still carry on. We continue what we don't realize. And so if you don't sit and have a look, and I'm not saying I'm not saying all mothers are bad. I'm not saying all mothers are toxic. What I'm saying is all mothers are human. And to human is to err, because we're not perfect people. And so for me, the thing that I want to challenge people is just literally, without judgment, without shame, take a look and see how certain things may have hurt you, certain things may have made you a certain way, and just heal from them so that you don't pass them on to the next generation. How is my relationship with my child? I'd say it's a good one. But it's also a work in progress. Do I have a fear of passing on the same things? Absolutely. I will say, for a lot of reasons, that has been my driver, because I'm determined to stop the cycle. I'm determined to do better. And so that is the thing that absolutely drives me. And I know there's a lot of people like us. But I think sometimes people also need to be told, just even by recognizing and trying, that's it. Like, you're already on a different path. And so sometimes I need to be reminded and reassured. And I'm thankful that I have a community of people who are amazingly supportive and who I have allowed to speak to me and let me know when they think I'm overcompensating. Because sometimes the danger of, if X was done to you and Y is a compensation, you will take Y to the very end of it. And yet taking that way is not right. So I have people around me who speak into my life and are able to tell me, no, here I think you're overcompensating. And then take it to therapy. I think therapy is extremely necessary for people. We need safe spaces where you can say the secret things and begin to untangle things that are going on in your heart, your mind, your soul, and your emotions, so that you're a better person for the people that you love. Yes, my relationship with my mother has affected my relationship with my partner. There's a book that I'm reading and it's called Mother Hunger by Kelly McDaniels, and it talks about the pain and the lack that happens when your mother is not there. And so she says something that I find very profound in the book. She says how so many adults are walking around with mother hunger, but we confuse it for romantic love. And so what happens is a lot of us are looking for our partners to fill in these gaps and needs that we have from our mother wounds. And when that doesn't happen, it frustrates us and it puts, it causes sometimes breaks in the relationship in certain ways. I will say he's been very patient and he's been very, very kind, and he witnesses and he sees everything that I've gone through. In fact, I feel like I credit him for me understanding what healthy relationships are and for me being able to begin this journey of support, of beginning to heal. There's been a lot of compassion and love in ways that I did not experience that have now alerted me to what I went through and what I lacked. And this is now what has led me to the journey of therapy and healing and figuring out how do I, because I'm clearly carrying around things that I didn't know I was carrying, how do I let go of the burdens that are not mine? How do I then move forward as a person I'm meant to be and not the little girl who's still crying there from her wounds? Because one of the things we don't understand is the things that happen to us as children, we're still carrying them as adults. There's very many adults who have wounded little children. And sometimes when you interact with them, you're not interacting with the adult, you're interacting with the wounded child in them that's firing and blazing and projecting and all of that. So I'd say that he's been an amazing support, but it definitely has affected our relationship in certain ways. How to recognize a toxic parent? I feel like this is a difficult question to answer. And because unfortunately, as a Kenyan society, we've normalized abuse. So abuse in the home, abuse by the government, abuse in the workplace. Almost everywhere we look, people are being mistreated. And often we shrug our shoulders. So to even point it out in the setting of a parental situation is even harder. Especially also because there's a lot of shame there. There's a lot of shame in knowing that your home and your household is not like everyone else's. And that makes it hard for people to point it out. But I will try. One is that one for you cannot be honest with your parents about who you are and the emotions and things that you're feeling. And a lot of times we can't be honest because it's going to be denied. It's going to create an argument. We're going to be insulted. We're going to be mocked. All of those are signs. There's manipulation as well. There is them living their lives through you. That's also another sign. You having to play a role. So you're only good or you're only listened to if you're playing a particular role. And there are very many roles people play in their families. Abuse is the biggest one. Neglect is another one. Abandonment. Those are all signs. But it's difficult for people to point it out because unfortunately we have normalized it. So what I would say is, you know, and you've thought these thoughts over the years, but you've been too afraid to voice it out because it's unspeakable in our society. So if you know, what I would say is start the work, do the therapy. You healing and you getting better is not dependent on them. It's not dependent on an apology. And for some people, it's even still possible to have a relationship with them, even despite that. But I would say you do your work. Do I think if I will ever forgive my mother? I have forgiven her. I have. I don't think I would be able to do this if I hadn't, one. But I will say forgiveness is a very personal journey. I feel like forgiveness is at the end of the journey. When you've begun the healing, I still have not finished my healing, but I will say this: you cannot forgive what you do not acknowledge. And that is the mistake we always make. We keep telling people, forgive, forgive, forgive. They don't even realize what happened to them. They don't understand the weight of the wrongs that were done to them. You have to understand what happened to you. There has to be a period of blame, and which is a part of grief, because there is a lot of grief, because the trauma is not just from the things that happened to you, but also the good things that did not happen to you. There's grieving in that process. But you should not get stuck in it, right? So as part of the grieving, then comes the healing and the learning to do better and making different choices and choosing an entirely different path. All of that is necessary. For me personally, forgiveness was part of it. But I do know not everyone chooses to forgive. And that is, everyone is on their own journey. I personally have. Why am I speaking about it now? Because I finally started the journey of healing. I stopped being that little girl who was waiting for people to see her pain and apologize, and because even if that was done, it would not change the situation. For very many years, I thought if they saw what was going on and they truly apologized, they would then work to change it, and then everything would be perfect and everything would be okay. But that never happened. And at some point, you have to grow up. At some point, you have to stop waiting for someone else, because your healing is not with that other person. Your healing is with you. I finally started doing the hard work. And for me, this is very hard. But what I would say for me is, if even one person starts their journey, it's worth it. It really is worth it.